Welcome, Regina. I want to thank you for being willing to hop on this call with me today and talk about your experience going through my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class. As we get started here, would you mind just taking a moment to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hi, my name is Tamie. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too, sweetheart.
My name is Regina, and I currently live in the eastern North Carolina area of the United States, and I've been here pretty much my whole life. It's a coastal area, we have great climate, and I really enjoy this area. Currently, my work is in healthcare. I do medical billing and have been in healthcare for gosh, at least 10, 15 years. And
Right.
I enjoy it.
Okay.
Um, my life consists of some wonderful friends, have some great social interactions with wonderful friends that are very close to me. They care about me, and I genuinely care about them as well. They are my lifeblood, I have to say. I'm very close with my family as well. We've had some interesting experiences over the years that have definitely shaped the way my life has gone and who I am today. But I'm grateful for it all, and am learning to be even more grateful as I continue on my journey. But
Amazing.
that's about me. I have my very close friends and very good family that I love. I have a small family, but I do love my family.
Yeah.
And wonderful.
Blessings. Nothing like the right support system, right? When we're blessed to have the right support system, the difference that that can make in our lives.
Yes.
So you recently went through my 8-week transformational coaching program. Now the group coaching version of the program, right? So there's 3 tiers of support to my 8-week to the Freedom Class, to the 8-week program, and you opted in for the group coaching program, which is by far the most popular choice, what folks more often than not will go for. So, I'm going to run through just a few questions to find out what your experiences were like, what you felt you got out of the program, that sort of thing. So the first question I have for you really is just tell us a little bit about where you were at in your life before you met me and what it was that caused you to be motivated to reach out to me.
Okay. Where where I was at that time before coming to your class, I was in a very low place. Um, I realized that I was spending more time trying to and more energy trying to get myself to feel better and to elevate than I was actually living in a state of feeling good all the time.
Mm.
And was trying to figure out why and what was the factor in my life that was causing it to be such a way. And I realized that I was in a romantic relationship that was very toxic. And for a long time, I did not want to I didn't want to identify the relationship as toxic. I thought it was things that I was doing that was causing the conflict. It was, I'm not being as agreeable as I should be. I need to try harder in the relationship. I'm not really showing him what he's needing to see from me. So I was just really in a low place. I was exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically. I think that was the thing for me once I ignored the mental exhaustion, ignored the spiritual exhaustion and the emotional exhaustion. But when the physical began to happen, I realized something was really wrong and that I needed to address it. So it was by a godsend, a chance that I found Tamie. I will be honest because I had not heard of your name before, hadn't heard of your program before, but it dropped right literally into my lap. And I read your customers' testimonials, read some information. Well, I loved your blogs. I love the way you write. It's so truthful and it spoke directly to my heart. Like I need the person to speak very clear to me. And that's because the fog that's happening when you're in a toxic situation is hard to hear and hard to pierce through sometimes. But your words did, your energy did, and from that, I knew you were someone I wanted to talk to. I wanted to really connect with and see if that was truly not just your words and and a message, but really that's the energy that you exude from your being.
Mm-hmm.
And from our first conversation, I felt it, and I knew that that was truly who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So finding your program was truly, that was it in itself was the gift. Just finding someone who could speak to me in such a clear and authentic way and help me see through the fog, just kind of see a beacon of light or something through the fog, that this is not how it's always going to be. There are some factors playing out within myself that are kind of creating it and helping it to stay, but that there's choices and things that I can do to change all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So finding your program was huge for me.
Awesome. I'm so glad you did.
Me too.
I just have to interject and say that working with you is an absolute joy and privilege. You're my favorite, client, girl, woman to work with. And I do work with men sometimes, mostly women, but I also have worked with men very successfully. But it's, the ones who are really ready and committed to rolling up their sleeves and doing the work that are the most fun for me to work with, the most rewarding for me to work with. And you really are that person. Like, you played full out. You were completely coachable. You were willing to trust the process. Excuse me. You didn't just show up and, piecemeal pick here and, choose, right? Like, you just really went for it. And as a result, I think, and we'll get into it in a little more detail, but you're really reaping the rewards and the benefits. So, huge kudos to you. And yeah, the admiration and respect is definitely mutual. Definitely mutual.
Thank you.
So, you're most welcome. So, what would you say specifically was the challenge that you were experiencing that made you want to work with me? Like, if you had to really narrow it down.
The challenge for me specifically, that's a very good question. There's so many things I feel like one of the biggest challenges for me was being able to kind of separate myself from the chaos. I wanted to identify the chaos so much. I think my default setting had always been, it's my fault. And anytime something goes wrong in any relationship, if it's just friendships, something at work, romantic partners, obviously, just if something goes wrong, I'm obviously the fault. It is my fault.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest challenge for me was to get away from thinking like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I identify I'm the common denominator in situations.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not about your fault. Let's blame and shame you, because that's the way I'd always thought towards myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that was hard because I thought that way so long. I'm sure it took time to, because I'm still not perfectly there. Like, I, still go back and forth, but to have any moments where I'm not shaming and blaming myself, just
Mm-hmm.
continuous, is huge, because then it allows time for a clearer thought and a clearer decision. And even being, if it's not perfect, it's still a clear decision, and not with so much shame and blame mixed in.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, one of the hardest and the biggest challenges for me, that my thought process with how I saw myself.
Right. Yeah. Specific to shame and blame.
Yeah.
Which is really common, in particular, obviously, with the folks that I work with. And it certainly was, a huge challenge for me up until I got serious about my own healing and recovery journey many years ago. And I think, when we come from backgrounds where we have been abused and exploited and manipulated and gaslit and scapegoated, And for those who don't know what those words mean, gaslighting is when someone is, causing you to, manipulating you emotionally in a way with the intent to cause you to doubt your own reality. So, when we've been gaslit and messed with in that way, or scapegoated, we've always been the blame. We have been on the receiving end of all of the unresolved issues and trauma of, and rather than accepting responsibility for their stuff, they find a scapegoat to dump it all onto. And every dysfunctional family has one. And I'm not saying that was specifically your experience, but it certainly was mine, and is often the case with my clients. We find ourselves in our adult lives very confused about where they end and we begin, and what is and isn't our responsibility. And in an attempt to get our emotional, psychological, spiritual needs met from that wounded place, we are taking on responsibility for things that have absolutely nothing to do with us.
Right.
It's not, it really isn't our fault, right? And that doesn't mean that we're perfect, or that we don't own some responsibility, or we haven't made mistakes, because certainly we all have. But it's that ability to discern what is and is not ours. And, I know for me personally, that was a huge step forward in moving in the direction of emotional and psychological and spiritual health, right?
Mm.
But it can be difficult to navigate that when you are either pre-recovery or new to the recovery process, which is why, having the right program and mentor can, be so valuable and important, right? Someone, I know I needed that. Someone I literally hold my hand and say, yeah, no, that's manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's projection. Yeah, that's your stuff. Oh, no, that's their stuff. Right? Like, we need that initially, that validation, and, someone to help us sift through all of that. Right. So, yeah. All right. Well, with regards to the Freedom Class specifically, what would you say your experience was? Like, for example, how has working with me and through the 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class, how has that helped you?
Oh gosh. How much time do we have?
Well, we're not in a rush.
It has truly helped me hugely. I think the area that I have to say is this feeling of, the word I used before was feeling empowered. It's being able to say, this is tough right now, but I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
This hurts right now, but I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, my thoughts were, this hurts right now. Oh, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I can't do this. But the thoughts are now, this is tough, but I can do this. And I deserve to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the reward, I'm hoping was that your question?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
Is having that sense now that I can do this. It's okay. It's going to be done. Stay on the program, just stay on my path, and continue to implement the tools that you've given to me to use that have definitely helped. Like the tapping is huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
My journaling is always something that I had been doing for years, but the journaling now, even now more, I feel like some of the modules of the program, like with the feelings exercises, now I'm implementing that in my journaling more. Mm-hmm. So I'm pouring out more out of myself into my journaling now. Mm-hmm. So it has much more significance. Mm-hmm. One of the tools that I've implemented because of the program now is the salt baths, the sea salt baths. Mm-hmm. And they do help. They help cleanse your mind, your energy, and just relax you to a much better state. And I can see that the benefit of that throughout my day, not just during the bath time, but I sleep so much better. Oh my goodness, I go to sleep and I just sleep until I wake up and I go, oh, I was asleep hours. It's a wonderful thing. So the program has given me that sense of, I'm going to be okay. I am going to be, and that's huge for me. It's just before the feelings were always more of a kind of defeated state, and thought I'd stay stuck in that defeated state. But now I have the sense of, I know I'm going to be okay, and everything's going to be okay. It's wonderful. And I know that healing, this healing journey won't just affect the romantic side of my life. It will affect my professional side, my interactions with people in the world, my relationships with my friends, relationships with new people that come into my life. I'll be making better choices and identifying what's really a healthy connection and what's not a healthy connection, and being able to anything that I identify as not healthy, being able to stop it before I'm so emotionally committed to it or so deeply involved that it's too hard. And I like that, knowing I have the choice, and I can make actions to to show I'm not welcoming this into my life, and it's okay. It's you're not an awful person or this whatever. I don't need to label you as that. I just need to identify this connection or bringing you into my life is not going to be good for me, and I can stop that without bringing you into my life and feel fine about it.
So peace, really, peace of mind, peace of heart. Yeah.
Yes.
And the ability to set boundaries is what I'm hearing, right? Like, it's not, again, like you said, I'm going to reflect back to you. It's not whether or not you are, an awful person. Your attitudes and behavior, we might be able to put some labels on those, but it's not about, condemning a person entirely in terms of their value or their worth, but just recognizing whether or not they are actually in alignment with who I am now and who I am choosing to continue to become. And Absolutely. When we recognize that actually this is not an alignment, and not an alignment often because it's clearly not in my best interest,
right?
Particular attitudes and behavior, I can make healthy decisions, conscious decisions, to take care of myself from a place of self-love and self-esteem, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to add to that it takes away that state of mind for me of making decisions about when people come into my life. I used to make, my feelings were always this instant obligation, the sense of obligation. And then I would feel guilty when I realized, oh, I need to get this person out of my life because I'm so obligated now that you've stepped in and I've let you in. Instead of thinking that way, now I'm thinking from a place of what's healthy for me, what's best for me. So that obligation is not even a factor, and it doesn't allow much room for the guilty tie to get attached. It's more just what's best for me, what works for me, and where I'm going in life, and that's it. And no obligation and no wrong attachments will be created. And I feel that as I get stronger and continue, that this is really going to be huge. At first with the program, when you mentioned about setting boundaries, at first, the first thing you kind of want to do is just shut the door. And that's not the healthy way to be. I get it. That's not, you don't want to stay there. But this now allows you to open the door, and especially for people like me, I'm very sociable and I love meeting people, but I don't have to invite everybody into my life and into my personal space, into my bubble. And it's okay. If I'm at an event and I meet you and we have a great conversation, I can leave you there. That's it. Not we had a great conversation and I'm at the event. I exchanged contact information. They're going to call me. I got to respond. No, that's too much. So I recognize that the healthy way is the boundary, and also being able to make the call. This is I met them at an event, and that's where I leave them, and it's totally fine.
Yeah. Like, if we don't actually take full responsibility for taking care of ourselves, loving ourselves enough to set the standard and take care of us and discern what is and is not good for us, like if we aren't willing, some people would call that selfish, right? Well, I think there's something to be said for healthy selfishness, because I really don't have anything of real value to offer anyone or the world if I don't have the capacity to take care of myself first and foremost. And
Right.
a big piece of that is the capacity to discern, right? Like, we're not being driven from our wounds, seeking for
Mm-hmm.
things outside of ourselves from folks who don't have it to give us. We're actually taking full responsibility for ourselves from the inside out, and learning to meet our needs in healthy, functional ways, so that we're not walking out into the world starving,
Right.
dying of starvation, right? Emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. And because we take care of us first, we now have something of real value to offer those who are in alignment with who we now are and who we are continuing to become, right? So it's, extreme self-care really is, what it boils down to. Being willing to be selfish enough to love
Mm-hmm.
yourself first. As I often say, love yourself first and love yourself more. And a lot of people will criticize that, and that's totally fine. But, let's be dirt honest. If we are nailing ourselves to a cross or living our lives as victims and martyrs, what do we have of value to give anyone? What kind of an
Right.
example are we living, and being for, for others?
Yeah.
Not least of which the little ones. I know you've got some little ones in your life that look up to, or at
Yeah.
least one, right? A very special niece who looks up to
Yeah.
you and admires you. Well, what kind of an example are we being if we aren't willing to take care of ourselves first, so we now have, we can be that shining bright light of, what it means to have healthy self-esteem
Right.
and
Yeah.
boundaries and standards, etc. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, so what are the tangible results you'd say that you've gotten as a result of going through the freedom class with me?
Tangible results would definitely be, as I said, the peace of mind. Um, and tangible, I guess tangible would mean things that I can physically put my hands on. Is
Yeah,
that your
well,
question?
very specific that you can point to. Before I came into the program, I was here. Now I've been through the program, I'm here. Before and you've already alluded to some of that, but, very specific, tangible, concrete results that that you've gleaned as a result of doing the work of the freedom class.
Okay. I'll say tangible results are being able to identify, especially with your help, gaslighting. I'd
Mhm.
read the definition of the word, and for many, a couple of years ago, and had heard of it, but never really saw it. Like, I couldn't point an example in my life and say, this is a moment where this was gaslighting or this was manipulation. Now I better see it, or at least feel it. I feel, something's not right with that statement or that person's response to me. And I really need to pay attention to the feeling that that's giving me. So the tangible results are now being able to slow down and recognize there's something happening within myself, and listening to myself, that I need to pay attention to that. Whereas before, I ignored any sensation my body gave me that I needed to take a step back. I just ignored that and would just go. Everything was from the head. So whatever my head told me to do, well, just try this more, or do this, efforting more here, do that, do this. And that wasn't always working. So other tangible results are definitely I have to say, the sleep. My sleep was so bad before this program. I could finally drift off to sleep around 1:30,
Mm,
2 a.m. And
mm,
by 4:30 a.m. every morning, I was
mm,
awakened
mm,
by this feeling of anxiousness. My
mhm.
heart would be racing, and it would just be thoughts going through my head for basically 2 hours, just going through my head. And I would wake up at 4:30 every morning, just in this panic state.
Mm.
And the worst part of it is that I knew it was thoughts going on in my head, but I couldn't remember what thought it was. that was causing me to feel this way. But I would feel that. So the sleeping, being able to be calm before I go to sleep, sleep calmly, wake up calmly, not feeling the need to argue about everything, not feeling the need to be drawn into every fight and accusation. Is, in my head, I may, the head is still thinking, the head is thinking, no, you need to say, because that's not true, that's not the fact. But there's this pause now that takes place first, and it's, you don't need to really get into that, because now I see that the drawing in was just creating this sticky web, and the purpose of it was just to get me tied in it. It was not to create a win-win or a negotiation or compromise. It was just only to create a stickiness to get they stuck and trapped. And so now, to me, that's a tangible thing. I recognize that that's what that was, and I really avoid doing that. That's big for me, because I I have this sense of justice that jumps in, and I want to defend myself. And I'm sure that that's from years of the abuse from as a child, the scapegoating, wanting to, you're always blamed. If no one's had a good time, could be 50 people in the room and all 50 had a bad time, it was your fault because, you were here and we did XYZ, but no one wanted to do that but you. So just years of that created that type of thought process for me. But now I can, and I would want to jump in and defend myself. And as a child, I was always afraid to speak up and defend myself, because I was, it was really not a good moment for me. Anytime I did speak up for myself or tried to defend myself, I got even more blame. So as an adult, it kind of created this fear, definitely this fear, is this locked mouth where I would not speak up for myself, or I just take the blame. Let's see, another tangible positive result would be definitely, I guess I brought up about the journaling. Now I feel I journal from a deeper place. And since I do journal and have been journaling for years, now that I'm journaling this better place, I feel it's more healing as I'm journaling. Journaling itself can be healing, but when you really get things out, that's where there's more healing for you. Gosh, I'm trying to think, Tammy. There's so much.
That's an amazing list. I mean, first and foremost, I'll reflect back to you. So correct me if I've gotten anything wrong here, but first and foremost, the capacity to the willingness to stand still and feel your feelings, and therefore have the capacity to trust yourself and what you feel, because you're now not living entirely from your head, but you've been willing to have the courage. And it takes courage initially for folks like us to come down into our bodies, stand still and feel those feelings, right? Like, there's a reason we spend our whole lives up here. This is safe, and it's a great way to anesthetize ourselves from feeling the full force of our feelings, because there's a lot of intensity there for good reason, right? So the capacity to actually stand still and feel your feelings, which then translates to this, developing this ability to trust yourself in your feelings, which is huge, absolutely huge. I can speak for myself. The first 3.5, if not close to 4 decades of my life, that was one of my biggest handicaps. And when you grow up as the family scapegoat, having been, abandoned, abused, neglected, gaslit, manipulated, all the things that many of us have lived, right? Your capacity to trust yourself has been severely arrested, right? So that's a big one, right? Because that capacity to trust ourselves is also very much connected to our capacity to trust our higher power, which is, our relationship with our higher power is our relationship with our highest wisdom, our highest guidance, right? Yeah. Our best life as our best selves. So these are big things. And then sleep. Well, how can we function effectively
Right.
If we are not well rested, I mean, it is so foundational, and so many people live from such high anxiety, and for so many reasons, not least of which high anxiety, this place of chronic sleep deprivation. And I don't know about you, but if I'm not sleeping well, I'm highly emotional, like hypersensitive. We talk about being empaths and being highly sensitive human beings, which is the vast majority of the people that I work with. Certainly when you're a highly empathic individual, you attract predominantly highly empathic clients, and all of that can be our superpower. But then there is a type of sensitivity, hypersensitivity, from sleep deprivation and unresolved trauma and all of that stuff, that is not a superpower. It is very crippling, actually, right? So sleep is huge. And what I know for sure is sleep requires peace. And
Yes, it
one
does.
of the wonderful things that I hear repeatedly from clients is, and some of them within the first few days of the program doing the work, like right out of the gate, peace like I've never felt in my entire life, just by actually doing the work right out of the gate and using the tools. And all of a sudden I have peace. When we have peace, we can sleep. When we can sleep, we can function. When we can function, we can think clearly, we can do our healing and recovery work, we can love ourselves, we can make healthier choices. We're not operating predominantly from our wounds.
Right.
We're able to reparent our wounded inner child and very quickly make gains in the direction of a healthy emotional life, a healthy life in general, right? So these
Yeah.
are big, big things. And yeah, in terms of tangible results, like, I think that's a really great list. And I didn't even touch on everything that you went through, right? So, you know, in terms of working with me as a coach, and I'm not looking necessarily for, but I would like for people to, often it can be very daunting, because we live in a digital world where there's so much information coming at us, and it can be hard, especially as newly recovering, or not even yet, like pre-recovering codependents and folks struggling with adult child syndrome and narcissistic abuse and all of that. It can be hard to know who to believe and who to trust, right? So, just from your perspective, as your experience working with me through the program, what was that like for you?
For me, working with you through the program was very enlightening and very supportive. The way you speak and your program, it does change your mind. It shifts your mind from the way you think before. And as a codependent, I'm learning really how that showed up for me. You think, you don't think the healthiest, and it's just not the best way to operate, especially if you tend to attract people who take advantage of people, of the empaths and the codependent people, and that's just the way it is. And you just have to be um, kind of vigilant and just aware of what you could possibly attract in your life.
Mhm.
So working with you, Tamie, was being able to have your voice as that beacon through the times when the fog was really thick. I called it, also there's other phenomena, I called it codependency, blindness, and deafness, because you've got people. In my case, I had really good friends that really speak really well to me and would offer advice and help. But sometimes the words couldn't get in, the messages couldn't get in, or I just couldn't see what they were saying. But you have this wonderful ability and it probably comes from your own personal experience. And I'm not saying my friends they don't have their own personal experiences, but the way you share your experience and maybe the intensity of what it was that you experienced, your delivery comes through as though I'm reaching into you and I'm going to pull you out of here. I'm going to pull this out and get you here, because I want success for you, and I want the best for you, and I want you to want that for yourself. So your working with you was that help to get me to I guess, let go of the part of me that wanted to hold on to the trauma and hold on to the codependency, because it felt safe and it's all I'd known. And it felt like that was the right. I need, it was, for some reason, my mind always believed that even on a recovery journey, that still needed to stay with me. And it's not so much the experiences or the lessons from the experience that those I really get. They need to stay because they help me now if I'm talking to someone and they're on their path. But it's not. I can release the tie of the just getting back into the pain and getting back into feeling sorry for myself. Just getting out of that. So working with your program was definitely not just only helping you release from the bad relationship, but release from the bad relationship that you have with your bad past. Kind of moving forward.
Where it all begins, right?
Yes, absolutely. Just getting released from that grip of the past on your soul. And so I really know that going through your program helped me get there, or at least start, so that I can feel better, and I'm willing to let it go. I'm willing to let it go. I do want to say that one of the exercises that we did a little while ago was the letter writing. And I really did pour myself into that. I had to
You sure did.
3 letters, and the years that all of that had been weighted on me. The moment we did the letter writing, it was like it lifted, and through, it's only been just a couple of weeks, it has lifted even more. Like I don't feel it pressing down just inside my soul of the hurt and the anger and the ugliness of it. It existed. I can share it, but it's not dragging me, through it. And I know that was a benefit from your program. I absolutely do, and I thank you for that. Really
you're my absolute honor and privilege. And that is a very powerful exercise. There's so much to be said for giving our wounded inner child, which is a very real aspect of us, our subconscious, right? Until we bring he or she into the light of our conscious awareness and start to pour love all over her, right? But there's a lot to be said for giving her a voice,
right,
and giving her an opportunity to be heard.
Yes.
Right. And the healing power of that. So, for those who are listening in, the exercise that Regina is referring to is actually in the program called the unsent letter exercise. Now, in my own healing and recovery journey, there have been times when those letters have been sent. And for the most part, those letters have not been sent. And some of those letters are written to people who are, alive and well on the planet, whether they're sent or not. And sometimes those are written to folks who are no longer on the planet. And it doesn't even matter. Like we decide what is appropriate at the time, but whether those letters are sent or not, the power involved and never send a letter, I feel like I need to qualify this for anyone who, might feel suddenly motivated, right? Never send a letter unnecessarily. There are times when it is appropriate to speak the truth. In my particular case, there was one example where that truth needed to be spoken to protect the next generation of children that were coming to the planet. Whether I was believed or not was irrelevant, right? So there are times when it is appropriate. There are times when something needs to be said, and the only way you have a hope in hell of being heard is with the written word, because if you try to communicate verbally, that's going to be, shut down in all the ways that we get shut down, right? When people do not, or are often just constitutionally incapable of hearing what it is that they are not prepared to hear for their own reasons of trauma and all of that, right? But the power even in an unsent letter and getting it all out and reading that in a safe place with the right guide and the right mentor who has the capacity to really hold space for that wounded inner child aspect is profoundly healing. And that is a tool that you will possess for the rest of your life. That, you know, the letters that you wrote while working with me throughout the program are not necessarily going to be the last letters that you ever write. You now know that you have this powerful tool. Because,
Yes.
you know, listen, I am 15 years into my very serious healing and recovery journey, and there are times when stuff still comes up, and it's like, oh, would you look at that? You know, so it's not like we ever get to a place of having fully arrived, but we do make quantum shifts forward
Yes.
in the direction of reconnecting with our authentic core, therefore becoming our authentic selves, shining our authentic bright light, living our best lives in the service of ourselves and others, right? Like we make these quantum shifts, but the reality is the work never really ends, right? It's just we go through different phases of intensity. The work that I do today is nothing like the work I did in the first few years, you know, certainly, you know, the first 4 to 5 years of my healing and recovery process, right? But we get better at using the tools, better at, you know, our response time to bullshit becomes,
Mm.
right? Which
Yeah,
is doesn't always make us popular, but it definitely makes us happier and more peaceful.
absolutely.
Right. So, yeah. So if I'm hearing you then, you know, with regards to what it was like working with me, you felt guided?
Very guided, safe. I do want to bring out about the safety and the safe space. That is huge because oftentimes there's some things I just had not shared before, even with people that were close to me, just and maybe not even share the experience or how deeply it affected me. But your program and you yourself creates that safety, that safe space, so you can say what you need to say, how you need to say it, just get it out, and you can talk about the experience. You allow room for to talk about the experience, and let's look at it. And it is hurtful, and let's look at it. You're validated. You are, you feel respected, trusted, cared for. Is very genuine from you, Tamie. And anyone who is even thinking about working with you, they need to know they're walking into a space that there is genuine, sincere care. You're not just running a program, you know, getting clients. You genuinely do feel for each person, and you speak to that person individually and to their heart. And I know that your true desire is for their highest, for each person to reach their highest being, and you help guide them to that. So absolutely, guidance, as you stated, is truly part of it's just an easy part of your program, and I'm glad that it's there because I needed that. I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. So guidance, safety, and validation
Absolutely.
and respect.
And respect. And respect.
That is without question the most important feedback that I could receive as a coach, as a teacher, as a guide. That is absolutely the intent that I have, to create that kind of space, because otherwise, you know, healing is, you know, it's very difficult, right? So so thank you for that feedback. Thank you.
You're
A
welcome.
couple more just quick questions, if you will indulge me. So when we first met, prior to
Mhm.
coming into the program and as you were getting started, you were involved in a relationship with, it was a relationship that you would describe, as I understand it, to be toxic and abusive, right? On, you know, on certain levels, certainly emotionally, psychologically, etc. Had you not done the Freedom Class, where do you think you'd be in terms of that relationship right now?
If I had not done the Freedom Class, I believe I would still be trying to work that relationship out, trying to understand what I was doing wrong that was creating it to be so chaotic. What part was, where was I dropping the ball on this relationship with him, and trying to make it work, apologizing for things that were not my fault,
Mm-hmm.
continuously apologizing,
Mm-hmm.
trying to fix. And in itself, that's manipulation. So I would still be manipulating on a losing end. So I would just continue to be losing. If I was still there and had not found the program,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I would be. I will also say, during the program, the relationship went into no contact.
Mm-hmm.
And had I not been in the program, I don't know if I would have been able to stay firm in the no contact, because that was really where I struggled with, as you've called it, the love addiction withdrawals, the withdrawals of the relationship and the
Mm-hmm.
withdrawals from the toxicity of the relationship. I had become addicted to it. And there were days that my brain would justify to
Mm-hmm.
the 100th degree that I am correct to make this phone call today. I am absolutely correct to break no contact and send this text today.
Mm-hmm.
But talking with you, doing the tools, using the tools, the tapping method was huge for me, like I stated earlier, because in that moment you shift from thinking about the intensity of what you're wanting to do and how bad you got to do it. Now
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about, okay, let me think about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And you might not be thinking you're thinking about yourself, but it's like, it's almost the same as if someone puts something sticky in this hand and it's so sticky it doesn't feel good, but then they put something on this other hand that does feel good. You're not thinking about sticky
Mm-hmm.
crap anymore. You're thinking about this. So the tools, the tapping got you to thinking about doing something else other than just thinking about how much I need to break no contact because this is the right thing to do right now.
Well, it
So,
arrests the obsession, right? We get into this obsessive compulsive drive, and it very much is stemming from our wounded inner child just trying to get her needs met from the place that she recognizes as love, even though it has nothing to do with love, but it's a vibrational match, as you now know, to what, to the original wounding and trauma. So she's still trying to get those needs met from someone who is a resonance to that, right? And this whole biochemical addictive process that many of us don't, and I've been there myself, right? And we don't even know. And I've heard it described by experts in the field that it is akin to coming off of heroin. Now, I've never actually been through heroin withdrawal, but I have been through love addiction withdrawal. And the agony of it is indescribable, as you know, because you've lived through it, and it requires real tools to help us break that subconscious biochemical pattern that has been playing out in our lives. And for many of us, that's decades, right? And it's decades. So yeah, I'm forever grateful that I was introduced to those tools so many years ago. And now I can, I'm a certified EFT practitioner, among other things, in my practice. So I'm able to pass those tools along to clients in a way that are very helpful, specific to codependency and narcissistic abuse recovery. So to circle back then, where you were was you were in this relationship. Without the help of the freedom class, you feel that you'd still be in that relationship, or at the very least, if you had broken away, you would not have been able to maintain no contact because of the intensity of the love addiction withdrawal that you had to learn to move through with the help of certain tools and processes that got you to the other side. And if you're ever in a position where you're feeling that again, which is not impossible, although I do believe you're well on the other side of the absolute worst of it. But if it ever did sort of reel its head, which it does, no different than when we quit smoking, or, for folks who have quit drinking or any other addictive process, it can be a number of years down the road and all of a sudden there's a craving out of the blue, right? It's, we're very complex and complicated as human beings in how we operate, right? But if that were ever to happen, you actually have tools that you know how to use, they work, to help you get to the other side of that, right? So let me just double check and make sure that I'm asking this properly. So now that you've been through the program, how likely do you think you are to return to this toxic, abusive relationship?
Ooh, that's a good question. In my perfect mind, I want to say never. And I really feel really strongly that I feel never. I don't believe that the desire to go back into it is the same. Like the intensity that I felt before of, well, maybe I really did love him. Maybe he really did love me. He just didn't know how to show it well. I I really feel I would not go back into that relationship. I, one thing I will say, Tamie, you've been real clear through the program is, it's not about perfection. And we have to learn self-compassion highly first. We've got to put compassion, be self-compassionate. And so I do think that way, to be more compassionate towards myself, and to recognize I am human, but the making efforts to I guess oh, the word, bring this relationship back, that is not there. That I know for sure that's not good. That wouldn't be good for me. And if I'm on a journey of trying to create a better life and to do things that really are good for me, and I know not just mentally, but I know, within myself that it is not good, the likelihood of going back into that relationship is very no. I would really feel say no. I can safely say no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So if I'm hearing you correctly, the likelihood that you would return to that relationship is slim to none.
Right.
As a result of the 8-week process.
Right.
However, you've been informed and educated and guided enough to know that it's not impossible that your mind might start playing tricks on you, your wounded inner child. Although she's made a lot of progress, the work continues. She might, try one day to manipulate you in a direction, very, very powerful force that can drive us when we're not consciously aware of what's going on. And, we have our days and our moments, right? So if I'm hearing you correctly, slim to none, but you're wise enough today to know that you may have urges or confusion or unconscious thoughts that could cause you to question whether or not that would be a good idea. But
Right.
the likelihood that you would actually follow through in that place of codependent amnesia that we are far less prone, once we've been through a healing and a recovery process, we don't slip into codependent amnesia much, if at all. And if we do, it's not for long.
Right.
But right, so if that were to happen, you do know how to find your way out.
Yes.
And you also have a support system in place in terms of lifetime access to the program, an ongoing relationship with me, lifetime access to the group, to the live Q&A sessions, a place to come, as well as all the other tools and resources that we've, been through and talked about, and all the, the good books and literature and all the things that you can do to keep yourself on the beam moving forward.
Yes. And I'm glad you about the live Q&As. They are so timely. They seem to pop up when I'm thinking on a specific topic, like, well, gosh, well, what did that mean? Or what was the right way to really view that? And you'll do a Q&A or the live trainings.
The live broadcasts, yeah.
So it's right on time.
Yeah,
and by the end of it, I'm so much more clear. Like, I got it.
Yeah.
And I don't always get a chance to comment on them to let you know what my takeaways were, and I'll get better with that. But believe me, when I hear the recordings, they're right on, Tamie, right on spot, and they're right. Well, however you say that, the right spot on. But they're so timely. I think that's the thing for me, is that it's usually right in line with whatever I'm dealing with at that moment. And not that it'll happen for everybody like that.
Yeah. That's divinely ordained. Like I'm very transparent with my clients, and I'm not the only one driving this bus. In fact, I don't even believe that I am the one driving this bus. You know, I spend a lot of time in prayer and meditation. I ask for guidance constantly, not just daily, but constantly. And there are times when I'm about to do a live training inside the Growth Zone group. I think like, because we have the live Q&As for the Freedom Class students, right? And then there's also the live broadcast that I do inside of my free Facebook community for anyone who's interested. Tamie M's Growth Zone. And there are times, to be honest with you, where 5 minutes before, I don't know what I'm talking about. And then I get the download, and it's not even scripted, and I just riff, and daily I have clients saying to me that, you know, just exactly what you just said, you know, in my inbox on the regular, I am receiving messages about the message, and it's not all on me. There's a power greater than myself involved in this entire process. So he, she, the universe, God, creator, source, whoever it is for you, knows exactly what it is that you need in any given moment. And I just am willing to be the instrument, and the tool really is how that works as I see it. So it's a really fun process to be involved in. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's been huge for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely
So glad.
and I'm so glad it's there. And I thank you for providing the lifetime access, because I'm going to continue watching and taking advantage of it, because it really does. And having the replays, you know, you may hear the message today and get some valuable points, but then you hear it again in another week or so, and you get even more every time. So they are wonderful to have.
Yeah, when in particular, I think with a lot of things, but in particular when it comes to healing and recovery, repetition is vital. Like, we are literally reprogramming our subconscious mind after decades of being programmed in the wrong direction, not least of which what we received in the first 7 years, which is to a large degree, I don't know if I want to say hardwired, because it's hardwired until we get in there and start rewiring it, right? Reprogramming it. So it's not permanent, but to a degree it's hardwired. You know, it's certainly before we actually become aware of our ability to go in there and reprogram all that stuff, right? So it is really the repetition. Some of my favorite recovery books I've read 6 times. And continue to read and continue to go back to, right? Some of the books that, you know, I've recommended to you, the recommended reading list that's in the private Facebook community for clients, and the recommended reading list is also in the free community, the Growth Zone community. You know, many of those books I've read repeatedly over the years. Excuse me, because what I gleaned from it 15 years ago or 12 years ago or 10 years ago is different a number of years later, right? So it's, I think, a really valuable part, hearing the messages over and over again, and also from different guides and teachers and coaches and therapists, etc. Because, you know, like you said, sometimes friends will be, you know, they've had the experience, they're giving you wise counsel, it's good advice, it's not landing, and then someone like me comes along with a real tough love is still love attitude, and I'm not here to hold, you know, I mean, I want you to feel safe, and I want you to know I'm coming from love, but I'm not the girl who's going to tell you what you want to hear. I tell you what you need to hear, because that is fully what worked for me. It wasn't the people who were willing to be there now, Tamie, and although that is certainly appropriate at times, but it's the folks who were willing to look me in the eyes and tell me what I needed to hear, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes that was knock it off with the bullshit. You're not a victim, you know, time to grow up, right? Take responsibility for your life, right? And that's not always easy to hear, but it's what we need to hear sometimes to move forward, right? And get unstuck, right?
Absolutely. Get unstuck, because you get stuck.
We did not come to this planet to live on the receiving end of noxious attitudes and behaviors. We did not come to this planet to be manipulated. We were not created in the image and likeness of the most powerful, whoever that is for you, source, energy, God, creator, whoever that is, created in his or her image and likeness. We did not come to this planet to be susceptible to manipulation, to be exploited as children, further exploited as adults, to be on the receiving end of all of this nonsense, and therefore living our lives stuck and paralyzed in fear and pain and trauma. That's not why we're here. And this planet needs each and every one of us healthy, whole, and healed, I believe, in order for us to get out of the mess that we find ourselves in, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. Completely.
One last question, my wonderful friend and sister. If you were speaking to someone today who is on the fence, considering whether or not they should dive in and go for it with the Freedom Class, whether that be the self-study option, the group coaching, or the private one-on-one, regardless of the tier of support. If you were speaking to someone today who is considering diving into one of the 3 offerings of the 8-week transformational program, the Freedom Class, what would you say to them?
I would say to them that this would be the best investment in themselves, that beyond words, they should not have any hesitation or any doubts. If they need to evaluate what it is that they're wanting. Do you want to feel better? Do you want to live better? Do you recognize that your choices, where you're making your decisions from, are not the best for you? You're not making the best decisions for yourself, and where that's coming from. And Tammie's program helps guide you through all of that, because it's very confusing. It's very hard to shift, to think differently when like you stated, you've been thinking a specific way or making decisions from a specific place for all these decades, and this is all you know, and you're still thinking, well, I can do it better this time, but it's the same thinking that got you where you are, so you really can't break it. It's too difficult. Mm-hmm. So if anyone who's considering your coaching program, they will have the guidance to think. Your voice guides you to think beyond your wounds, and you'll learn to do that beyond the program. It's just not just in the program that you have your voice to help you think differently. You develop that tool, that skill, mm-hmm. and that's so much more rewarding than sticking in a painful situation that's been painful and is continuing to be painful. And to also look at the relationship itself. Where do you see yourself 8 weeks from now? If 8 weeks from now is still going to be rinse, repeat of what you've already been experiencing, why not put yourself for 8 weeks onto a different path where you know that there's going to be definitely a different light, a better light for you at the end of 8 weeks. It's still 8 weeks. You're either going to spend 8 weeks totally in hell, or you're going to have 8 weeks developing some inner strength, you're just going to develop start this healing path for 8 weeks. Go for the program, go for the coaching. Tammie will help you get there. There's no better feeling, and I can't even put it all in words, as you can see, all the rewards that come from it. But you definitely, there should be no hesitation. It is going to be the best decision. You'll realize in 8 weeks it is the best decision you could have ever made. You'll realize it before 8 weeks. You will definitely realize it well before 8 weeks. But the life is going to continue. You can either spend the 8 weeks completely in hell, confused, or 8 weeks developing some tools that get you out of that. And mm-hmm. I say go for Tammie's program, go for the coaching.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you for being willing to take the time out of your Saturday, early morning, I think. We're moving into the afternoon here in your time zone, but thank you for being willing to take the time to do this interview with me, Regina.
You're welcome. I want to add, do you mind?
Absolutely, not at all.
When you put me on the challenge to do the salt baths, you said, I want you to do the salt baths for 30 days. And I thought, okay, well, any woman loves a good hot bath. Okay, yeah, it's not a hard to go. But for 30 days, and there was a lot of sacrificing with making sure I took the hot bath for 30 days. But what I did probably around day 3 or 4, I thought, let me make this let me add something to this challenge that Tamie has given to me, and I'm going to follow through. And I did. I did the salt baths. In fact, I still do them, and it's been beyond the 30 days. I made a little chart here. I just wanted to share with you. And I know it's going to be kind of backwards for you, but there's my list of 30 days.
Oh,
And
look at that. Yeah.
I have my
Yeah.
salt bath, my
Yeah.
meditation, prayer
Yeah.
time, EFT tapping, and mirror work.
Yeah.
And I've alternated it with nature, walking, walks in nature, and other tools that you've given me during this program. So I look at this every day, every single day, and I'm like, what did I do for myself today? And to take me off of the stuck thoughts or where I was and where I am at that moment, to keep me on this path. And I put it on pretty paper, so it makes me want to
Beautiful.
look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Little beads and rhinestones on it. But that has been so huge for me. And the tools, the salt bath, the meditations, the prayer, it all works. Every bit of it works. And if it does just a little bit through the day, I've got a list of like 4 or 5 things here each day that I'm doing. It adds up.
Mm-hmm.
So this just goes back to saying about the program. There will be no regrets with joining the program. No regrets at all.
That is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. You know, I'm always just in awe of the clients, and it's certainly, you know, it's normal. It's not going to be all of them. I'm fortunate, though, it is the majority of them who, by the time they come to me, they are ready. And I remember being in that place in my life. For me, it was back in 2005, my moment of clarity and readiness to be willing to go to any lengths, right? And the folks who are willing to really play full out, roll up their sleeves and do the work, the transformation that can happen in an 8-week period of time is astounding. And because it's a program specifically designed to address codependency, which includes adult child syndrome, but codependency and narcissistic abuse recovery, often, not always, but often folks are surprised at the level of, you know, responsibility and, you know, but I am not about the business of creating more codependency. I am about the business of waking you up to your own personal power, right? So if you are looking to stay stuck in your codependency, this program is not for you. If you're looking for someone else to come along and fix you and do it for you, this program isn't for you. If you're looking for a guide and a coach on a journey with a process that is now absolutely proven time and time and time and time again to work powerfully within the first few days, never mind the full 8 weeks, and you're ready and willing to do the work, then this program is for you.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So huge virtual high five to you for being one of those beautiful souls who was ready, willing, and able to play full out. I know that the trajectory of your life, romantically, but in every other way across the board, has been shifted to a much more powerful, healthy, happy, peaceful, harmonious track.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Supported and guided by the higher power of your understanding.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? The relationship with yourself has been really up-leveled to a whole new place. And that's what it's all about. Like, I'm not in the business of breaking up relationships. I have many clients who are still in the relationships they were in, but, you know, because it wasn't, you know, that wasn't, leaving the relationship wasn't appropriate or necessary in their particular case. And then many others who before, during, or after did leave because it was toxic, abusive, what have you, right? It isn't always the romantic relationship that is the issue or the challenge, right? So it's not about being in the business of breaking up relationships. It's about being in the business of helping you reconnect with the relationship with yourself and the higher power of your understanding, and then doing all the things to really cause that to blossom in your life. And you are a prime example of how well the entire process works. So thank you, thank you, thank you again, Regina, for being willing to do this interview, but also for playing full out and, you know, loving yourself enough to do the work. I could not be more proud of you as a friend, as a sister, as a client. And to say that it was an honor to work with you is, you know, it was an absolute honor and privilege to be your guide on this journey.
Thank you. Thank you. And likewise, it was absolutely an honor to work with you and have you guide me, and be that support. It absolutely means the world to me. And I've said, I will continue to thank you, because each week as I grow and I, shift somewhere differently, I know that's Tamie. I hear your voice in my head all the time, like, Tamie, help me get there. And I'm so glad. I just feel so much better. So thank you. Absolutely an honor to be a part of your program and you welcoming me, because we could have had our initial consultation, could have said, well, you know what, she's not quite a client I want to work with, but that you sense that I needed what I needed and that you could help me. And that, and I thank you for welcoming me into your program.
Oh, you're most welcome. Yeah, it was very evident that you were a good fit. When I speak with people who are not a good fit, I'm honest. If I don't think that I can help you, but I think something else or someone else can, or sometimes do this first and then come back, like sometimes that's appropriate, but you were ready. And that was very clear. So it was divinely ordained. It was divinely ordained.
Absolutely. Yes, it was.
Well, friends, there you have it. Regina's client review and testimonial on her personal experience working with me in my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class. If you'd like to learn more about the possibility of working with me in my coaching program, I'm going to put a link in the description below where you can apply to see if you qualify for a free private one-on-one breakthrough strategy session with me. And with that, I will leave you with this. Know your value. Know your value and unlock your freedom. Mwah. Bye for now.